Turning now to public education, teachers' unions are vowing to fight back after a California judge struck down the state's rules for keeping and firing teachers. The judge heard evidence that removing one ineffective teacher from the classroom can take up to 10 years and cost nearly $500,000. Our Athena Jones is covering this important story for us. Athena, this could obviously affect school systems in California, but elsewhere as well.
That's right. This case was brought by 9 public school students. They were backed by an education reform group called Students Matter. And this ruling, which I have right here, it's being called a landmark decision. It could have an impact in California and far beyond California. This was framed as a civil rights issue. The judge in this case, in fact, cited another landmark decision we all know about, Brown v. Board of Education, in agreeing with the plaintiffs in this case that the way California hires and fires its teachers is unconstitutional. He said it violates students' rights to equal protection, to an equal access to an education, and that this especially affects poor and minority students. And so the supporters of this ruling are calling it a victory for students. Unions are saying it's scapegoating teachers. The issue here is that the way California grants tenure is much shorter than many other states. It takes about 2 years or really a little less to decide whether a teacher gets those big, strong lifetime protections, job protections for their job. It also, this case addresses the fact that it makes it incredibly hard to get rid of teachers in California. As you mentioned, it can take up to 10 years. And also these rules about last one hired, first one fired when it comes to budget cuts. They put seniority ahead of teacher quality when it comes to getting rid of teachers. And so this has been a closely watched case. What's next, you might ask? This group, I spoke to them today, they said they're already talking to about a dozen other states, looking at bringing similar cases in states like New York, Connecticut, Maryland, and Minnesota. So this is going to be a case that's closely watched. Of course, they're going to be appealing it. Unions will be appealing it. This group will continue to fight it. And this is absolutely not the end.
And nothing is more important than our kids' education. So having good teachers is critical. Athena, thanks very much. The Education Secretary, Arne Duncan, is among those applauding this ruling in California. He called it, and I'm quoting now, a mandate to fix the system. Let's bring in John Deasy. He's the superintendent of the Los Angeles Unified School Districts. John, thanks very much for joining us. So you're happy about this decision. You think it's going to help kids. Give us your immediate reaction.
Yeah, I'm very pleased. I think this is a historic day for students' rights here in California. I think it is a very pro-public school, very pro-teacher, and very pro-student decision. The same rights that teachers justly deserve, those rights are now clearly being provided for the youth, but particularly youth who have lived in circumstances of poverty.
The judge's ruling, as you know, was stayed pending an appeal from the teachers' union. Yeah. So what do you think? Will this ruling stand? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think, I hope what happens is that we form a coalition of strong labor leaders and our legislators and immediately get to rewriting laws that are just and legal. These laws have been found to be unconstitutional. I think it's incumbent upon us to work as quickly as possible, and I know we can do that, to set a craft of laws that are able to hold the same rights that teachers justly deserve with rights for students.
What do you say to the teachers' unions? And we're going to hear the other side shortly. To the teachers' unions who say this is unfair to teachers, they've worked hard, they deserve to have the seniority, they deserve to have their jobs protected.
So absolutely, great teachers absolutely deserve to have their jobs protected. I think this is very pro-teacher in a number of ways. One is California has a very, very short period of time. Actually, it's about 13 to 14 months to determine if we're going to award tenure, which I believe teachers justly deserve tenure. But it's a ridiculously short period of time. We don't even finish providing the professional development to support new teachers before you have to make the decision whether to keep them. So the judge on his face of the ruling is that it's absurd to have that period of time. We need a longer period of time to really take into account all of the great work that teachers do to make that decision.
How long should they have to be a teacher before they qualify to be tenured?
I mean, I think that we would find it very reasonable, and teachers would anywhere between 3 and 5 years. Just allow us to have a period of time to work and support teachers before we make this important decision, and then celebrate that decision. Well, let me ask you this follow-up, John. If they have 3 to 5 years, they're tenured, they're doing a good job the first 3 to 5 years, they get tenure. But what about if they decide to coast
after that. They decide, you know what, I have tenure, I can't get fired, I'm not going to do as good a job as I should do. What do you do to a teacher then?
Yeah, so I don't actually find many teachers who behave that way whatsoever. I do find teachers, however.
What if you do, though?
And if we find teachers who actually can't teach, students can't learn, or they commit an egregious act, then they need to be removed, and they be removed in a very fair process, but one that does not cost a district millions, where we should be taking that money and investing it in students and in teacher raises, and one that happens quicker.
John Deasy, thanks very much for your perspective. Good luck. As I like to say, nothing is more important than our kids' education. Just ahead, the president of the American Federation of Teachers will join us to explain why teachers' unions oppose this ruling in California and what they are now planning to do about it. Tossing out California's rules for firing teachers is welcome news to Michelle Rhee. She's the former chancellor of the public schools here in Washington, D.C. She says teachers' unions have lost sight of what's most important in the classroom.
The union's job is to protect the rights, privileges, and pay of their members. They want their members to be able to keep their jobs regardless. And what this judge is saying is that we have to look out for the interests of children first and foremost, that we have to ensure that there's a high-quality teacher in front of every child every single day. And the reality is that these things should not be seen at odds with one another. We can see this as a real opportunity to create a new paradigm in which we are elevating the teaching profession, but we're also protecting the rights of kids.
Randi Weingarten is the president of the American Federation of Teachers, which represents about 1.5 million teachers, educators nationwide. Randi, so why is Michelle Rhee, Arne Duncan, the courts in California wrong, and the teachers' unions that you represent right?
Well, because everybody wants to have great schools for our kids. So everybody's impulse, I hope, is to have great schools for our kids.
But why shouldn't school districts be able to fire a bad teacher?
And of course they should be. And frankly, in California...
But it's so difficult, 10 years, $500,000. So why does it have to be so difficult to fire a teacher who's not really educating kids?
And frankly, it shouldn't be that difficult, and there are so many
different... So what is your proposal? How do you fix this problem?
So let me just say, this was what the court did, was the wrong solution for some of the right problems. Because at the end of the day, we all need great teachers. It's not the only thing we need. We need to actually look at other things as well.
So how do you fix the problem, though, if a teacher has tenure, it's so difficult to fire a crummy teacher?
But this is what you need to do. Great teachers need to have voice so that they can take risk. And we also need to have a pipeline into teaching, because half the teachers these days leave right now because they don't have the conditions they need. But you're absolutely right that if a teacher cannot teach, they should be fired effectively and quickly, and that's why you need to have real evaluation systems.
But the unions make it so difficult to fire a teacher. California, you heard the testimony, 10 years, $500,000 to fire a teacher.
And then there was also testimony, and look, this case is going to be appealed. There's also testimony in California that said that districts that are working together, like ABC and Laguna Beach, never have these problems. Look at what happened in New York. When we saw the extensive time it was taking, the union and even Michael Bloomberg got together and said, okay, we're going to cut that time. In New Haven, in Baltimore.
So what's the time in New York? How long does it take to fire a teacher?
About 3 to 6 months.
And do they get paid during that period?
Unless there is a terrible miscreant offense that they are accused of, they get paid during that period of time.
What about getting a tenure? We just heard Mr. Deasy say 3 to 5 years as opposed to 1.5 years. Is that acceptable to you?
Look, at the end of the day, what the laws in many states have now changed so that this case would be moot in most of those states. What John Deasy told you was basically, you have lots of people in California who were concerned that it was a year and a half to get due process. And that's why they went through this rigmarole. The problem is, what the judge did here was just narrowed the decision to presuppose that the only thing a child needs is a great teacher. No, a child needs a great teacher in art and music and high standards and supports to be able to climb the ladder of opportunity. So you're going to fight this decision in California? We're going to fight the decision, but what I'm concerned about this decision is the presupposition that to help children, you need to hurt teachers. And Where I agree with Michelle Rhee is that it is an opportunity. We need to actually bolster the profession, give them the support that teachers need to do a good job.
But the only teachers they want to hurt are the bad teachers.
No.
They don't want to hurt good teachers.
Except that, Wolf, if that's the case, the judge should not have thrown out the rights of every teacher, because good teachers need to be creative. They need to take risks. They need to actually do things that where they may stumble and fall. But what this decision did is said to teachers all across the country, don't speak up anymore. Don't try new things. That's why it's the wrong solution to a problem, which is we need to have quality teachers. We need to have great conditions in schools. We need to have high standards. We need to have art and music and wraparound services.
Randi Weingarten is the president of the American Federation of Teachers.
Thank you.
We'll continue this conversation because, as I say, this is important stuff.
Absolutely.